Here we go. So first I want to thank two sponsors that we have for today's class, Harold Sachs on the occasion of the Yortzeit of his mother, and Nellie Kahn, Yortzeit of her father. And may their memory be a blessing. There's a little lunch there in the back of the room. If you want, I don't know if it's going to be, if you can do that by Zoom, get a bagel and Lux, but the people here in the room, more than welcome to enjoy. So thank you for our, I'm sorry?
It's going to be a lecture of somebody?
No.
Just eat it.
Yeah. Okay. So we continue with our series, and we spoke about the first mechanism in the first class that was confusing desire and willingness, let's call it. And then last one was the mechanism of default that we talked about. And the idea is, indeed, if we could identify those mechanisms and be able to identify that process in which good people sometimes end up doing things that are not so great, then perhaps we have a better chance in making this world a little bit better. So today we're going to talk about yet another mechanism. A lot of places, I apologize for Miri, already heard that class, but that's okay. It was in a different language, so it's going to sound different. A lot of working places, communal, whether it's apartments of several roommates or kitchen in a working place, whatever. There's this understanding, or this unwritten, sometimes it's actually written law, that the kitchen, in the kitchen, like if people share a kitchen, whatever, it's like if you used a glass or something, you need to clean it, you need to wash it, put it back. Okay, if it's a working place and you made for yourself a cup of coffee, you wash that cup and you put it back, the clean cup, right?
Yes.
It's clear to everybody that everybody needs to clean after themselves. But interestingly enough, the factor that determines whether one is going to wash the glass after using or not is a different question. The question is whether there are other glasses or whatever utensils in the sink. That's what's going to determine. If the sink is clean and empty, then most people are going to, clean their, wash after themselves. But however, on the other hand, if it's full of dishes, most people just going to leave the dirty dish in the sink as well. Same person, same set of values. I believe it's the right thing to do to wash that cup of coffee that I have in my hand after, well, not this one, this is paper, after the use. However, whether I'm going to do that or not depends on not if I believe in that, but rather if there are other dishes, dirty dishes in the sink. In a similar way, most people, reasonable people, good people, not going to throw their gum on the floor or the wrapping of a candy bar or something. They're not going to do that. or to use tissue paper or whatever that is. They're not going to litter. However, the same person who is not going to do that, if happened to be in an extremely dirty place where there's tons of trash on the floor, that person is going to do that as well. Most chances. It's all of us. And that phenomena was studied by two American scholars, George Kelling and James Wilson, in the beginning of the early 80s. And it led to a theory that we even use today in criminology, etc., the broken window theory. However, already in 1969, Philip Zimbardo, Stanford psychologist, already started the experiments about that. He had two cars he didn't need, and decided to conduct a small experiment. He arranged to have one parked with its hood up, open doors, without license plates, on a street in the Bronx, in New York, a place that was poor, dangerous, and full of crime. The other car was parked on a street in Palo Alto, here in California, like any other normal car, with its hood down and license plates intact. It looked like it belonged to somebody. The car in the Bronx was attacked and vandalized within 10 minutes. After 3 days, there was nothing of value in the car, and it was ultimately wrecked totally, while the car in Palo Alto sat untouched for more than a week. Then Zimbardo got bored and decided to intervene. He smashed a window of the car with a sledgehammer to add some fun to the experiment. Car in Palo Alto. Thus, the car went from being in perfect condition to showing signs of abuse and neglect. A few hours later, the car had been turned upside down and utterly destroyed, just like the one in the Bronx. And that brought to the studies in the 80s, which later on culminated in criminology. The broken window theory states that visible signs of crime, antisocial behavior, and civil disorder create an urban environment that encourages further crime and disorder, including serious crimes. The theory suggests that policing methods that target minor crimes such as vandalism, littering, public drinking, jaywalking, and others help to create an atmosphere of order and lawful. And this theory was adopted by New York City, Mayor Giuliani at the time. And it's called the broken window theory. Basically, to make it simple, if you have a broken window in your house, you need to fix it as soon as possible. Otherwise, you're going to have many more very quickly. Most reasonable people are not going to break a window. However, if the window is already broken, well, the chance that I'm going to continue and break the second or the fourth window or whatever increases dramatically. So vandalism is something that most people are not going to do. However, if it's already there, chance that I will continue that vandalism increases. So that mechanism in our head that says, well, to be the first to break something or to litter or to do something wrong, no, I'm not going to do that. However, continuing that act, adding to the garbage on the floor, adding my cup, my dish to the sink that is already full of dishes, breaking the second window, whatever that is, that's not so terrible. So why good people do bad things? People who would, under different circumstances, would never do such a thing. Well, because it was already broken. Why did I break that window? Because there's a bunch of windows already broken. Why did I drop the used tissue paper on the floor? Because it's already dirty. There's like tons of garbage around me. Then I do that as well. Why did I leave a dirty dish in the sink? Because it's already full of dirty dishes. So what's the big deal? One more. Why people, do all sorts of, graffiti or doodling or whatever on in public toilets? Well, because it's not the first one. Somebody already started that. And if we want to stop that type of behavior, we need to understand that first. Now, believe it or not, Torah deals with that as well. I mean, after all, it's kind of, you come to a shul, you're talking to a rabbi. We can't leave it just to psychologists. We have to make it about the Torah as well, right? So the Torah deals with that. In the laws of Korban Pesach, the Paschal sacrifice, in Parashat Bo, the Torah says, "Bevayit echad yachel," that the Korban Pesach, the sacrifice of Pesach, the Paschal lamb, is supposed to be eaten in one house. Lo totzi min habasar chutza. You can't take from the meat outside the house. It has to stay in the house. Ve'etzem lo tishberu bo. And you may not break a bone. Now, there's a lot of laws when it comes to preparing and how to, all the details of the Korban Pesach, right? Bnei Israel was supposed to do it with their, shoes and like backpacks and ready to go. Motnechem, chagurim, makelchem beyedchem. They had to put the blood on the doorpost. Remember all that story from the Agadah? And all those preparation. But there's one detail. Once the korban gets home, right? They had to shech the lamb and then they bring it home. The group gathers in the house, and you're not allowed to take any of the meat outside the house. It has to remain inside the house. Not only that, no one is allowed to break the bones of the korban. The pasuk says, "Lo totzi min habayit," right? You may not take it out from the house, and then ve'etzem lo tishberu bo. Cannot break any bone. Baal HaKtav VeHaKabbalah was a commentator that was very much concerned, commenting on grammar in the Torah. Lived in the 19th century. Asks the following. He says, "Amar belav ve'hotza'a lashon yachid lo totzi, ubelav deshvira lashon rabim lo tishberu." He brings a question, and he says, "I don't understand. When you and I went to school and we learned grammar, we learned that if the sentence starts in singular, it has to continue. If you start with plural, continues in plural. This pasuk doesn't follow that. It says lo totzi, singular, one, right? Lo totzi, you, as a singular, And then ve'etzem lo tishberu. This one is in plural. He said, I don't understand what's going on here. Why this one is in singular and the other one is in plural. And he answers the following. Ki ein hotza'a achar hotza'a, aval yesh shvira achar shvira. When it comes to taking out the meat, the first prohibition that the pasuk is talking about, he said, you can't redo it. Once the meat is outside the house, it's outside. Okay, you may take it back in and then take it out, but it's already out. You can't change the status. It's already done. You already violated the commandment. Once you took it out of the house, you violated the command. However, when it comes to breaking the bones, you can do it again and again and again. Right? If you broke one bone, you can continue breaking the second bone and the third bone, or even taking the same bone and break it again and again. So you understand what he's saying? En hotza'a achar hotza'a. When it comes to taking out the meat from the house, it's a one-time act. Once it's done, it's done. You cannot undo that. You cannot repeat the act. However, when it comes to shvira, breaking the bones, you can continue doing that again and again and again and again. And therefore, this is in the plural versus the first commandment is in the singular. Just a sec. Let me just. So, if the Korban Pesach is already outside the house, so whoever took that Korban Pesach, whoever took that meat and took it outside, opened the door and went outside, he violated. The person, let's assume that now the meat is outside. It's on the street, wherever, somewhere. If somebody found that meat outside and moved it from one place to the other, he didn't violate anything. Because the korban, the meat is already outside. The Torah doesn't talk about prohibiting moving the meat from one location to the other once it's outside. The prohibition is to take it out from the house. It's like, you want to give a punishment to your kid, and you tell them, okay, stay in your room. Right? So once they leave the room, they're violated. Right? Now, if they're going to go, okay, so they went outside of the room and they went to the bathroom. They went from the bathroom later on to the living room. It doesn't make any difference. Because what you told them is stay in your room. Once they got out, they got out. The fact that they went to the bathroom, or they went to the living room, they went to the kitchen, makes no difference. That's not the violation. The violation is to leave the room. However, when it comes to breaking the bones, the person who broke the first bone violated the commandment. But the person who broke the second bone also violated the commandment. And so the third and the fourth and the fifth, etc. Meaning you can continue breaking what is already broken. Or let's be clear, it is forbidden to break what is already broken. This is why it's in plural. The fact that somebody broke that bone of the korban, doesn't mean that you can go and continue breaking. Yeah? So why this is in plural and this is in singular? The broken window theory. The fact that the first bone is broken or the window is broken doesn't mean that you can continue and break the second window or the second bone and the third. The Torah says absolutely not. Yes, Daniel. He also violated. No, because it's already violation. It's already like it happened. It doesn't matter. It's on the group. It's on the group, right? Because the whole group is together. That's the whole point. So there's a mindset that says, well, if it's already broken, it's not a big deal if I'm going to break it again. It's already, it's like and that is the mechanism. However, the Torah comes and says, Etzem lo tishberu bo, in plural, no. Do not continue breaking even after it's already broken. Each break is forbidden. Now, but it doesn't stay as a theory in Judaism. It becomes halacha. In several places, it becomes so halacha. That principle brought down to halacha. Shulchan Aruch in Hilchot Ta'anit, for example. Okay, the Shulchan Aruch talks about Hilchot Ta'anit, the laws of fasting, and he says the following: Nadar leitanot beyom zeh, v'shachach ve'achal, mashlim ta'anito. We're approaching Purim, right? Purim this year is going to be Sunday, so the fast of Esther is going to be Thursday. Okay, because Shabbat is we push it to Thursday. Okay, Thursday morning. Okay, my ritual, for example, in the morning before I come to my 6 a.m. minyan, I have to have my cup of coffee, the first one at least. Okay, otherwise, so on the way to shul, I already drink my first cup of coffee. I get up on Thursday morning and I make for myself coffee and I drive to shul. I come to shul. Oh my God, it's a fasting day. I can't drink coffee. Already drank the coffee. Okay, I'm supposed to fast. Says the Shulchan Aruch. V'shachach ve'achal, somebody forgot. Ate, drank, whatever. Mashlim ta'anito, you continue to fast. You would think, okay, I already had my coffee, so forget it. I violated. So I should continue eating the rest of the day. Come to Shulchan Aruch says, Mashlim ta'anito, continue, whatever, it happened. Accidents happen. That's okay. You forgot. You didn't continue fasting. Because even the broken fast, I need to continue fasting. The fact that I violated, I broke it, it doesn't mean that I can continue doing so. Another example, there's a discussion among the Rishonim about the tum'ah, the impurity of Kohanim. So you know that Kohanim are not allowed to become tameh, to become impure in contact with a dead body. Right? The Kohanim refrain from going to the cemetery unless it's one of the relatives. They are not part of Chevre Kadisha. Fine. So there's a discussion among the Rishonim. Rambam and the Ravad. The Ravad says the following. In our days, i.e., after the destruction of the temple, okay, let me go one step before that. Today, we're all tameh. Because the tum'at met, like somebody has that impurity of touching a dead body, it continues. So that means if I touched a dead body and I touched you, you become tameh as well. So we're all tameh. And the point is that you cannot become purified from that tum'ah, only one way that we cannot do. That's sprinkling the red heifer, right? We don't have that anymore. We don't have it for over 2,000 years. Right? It's a whole process. You need to find a red cow and you shecht it and then you burn it and you put the ashes with water and whatever, and then you sprinkle that over the person who is tameh. Fine, whatever. You can read it all. It's in the Torah. We don't have that mechanism for over 2,000 years. And so we're all tameh, we're all impure for that particular type of tumah. Big deal. So it's a theoretical debate between the Ravad and the Rambam. In our times, meaning after destruction of the temple, since we all tameh, so what happens to the Kohanim? Obviously, they're not allowed to go to the cemetery, be in contact with the body, that body, all that kind of stuff. The question is it on the Deoraita level or Midrabanan? That means is this on the Torah level, prohibition, or rabbinic? Okay, that's the question. The Ravad says, since we're all tameh anyway, including all the Kohanim, it's not on the fact that the Kohanim refrain from going to the cemetery or be in contact with a dead body. It's not on the Torah level, because on the Torah level, they're supposed to be pure. They're not pure anyway. So now it's rabbinic only. The Rambam says the following. Rambam in Hilchot Avel, in the laws of mourning, says the following. Nitma kohen mikodem. The kohen becomes impure. Later on, he goes into a place of tumah, again, impurity, right? The tent, for example, or a house where there's a dead body. Loke af alabia. He is liable for the second time. He's already tameh. He's already impure. What are you talking about? He is liable for the second time. He doesn't change his status. According to the Rambam, yes, he is liable. The Rambam says, and by the way, that was the halacha. That's the halacha. People, like the rest of the authorities follow the Rambam's opinion here. That the Kohen, even though he is tameh, cannot go and be tameh again. The fact that the window was broken doesn't give you the legitimacy to go and break it again. The fact that I'm already impure doesn't mean that I can continue and go into a second place where I'm going to get the tum'at met. The fact that I already had my coffee in the morning doesn't mean that I can continue eating the rest of the day. It's the same principle. And the Shulchan Aruch is going to take it to even a next level. As you know, the custom in cemeteries is that Kohanim are actually buried at the edge of each section. The first row, the last row, whatever. And many people, most people think that the reason is if they're in the last row or first row, it's to allow the family members to come to the cemetery, because there's the road, right? There's the road and there's like sections. So if it's a family of Kohanim and they go to the cemetery, like on a yard site or whatever, right? So if the family members are in the road and the grave is in the first row, so they can do that. So most people think that the reason why the Kohanim are buried in the first or the last row or both of each section is to allow the family access. But the Shulchan Aruch actually have a different explanation. And he says the following: Asur lekohen leitama lemet, afilu be'et shemetame lekrovav. Fascinating. If a kohen loses a relative, a parent, God forbid, a child, sibling, spouse, they have an obligation to go to the cemetery and, be like everybody else, involved with the burial, right? It's a mitzvah. It's an obligation. They can't say, "Oh, I'm a kohen. I'm not going to the cemetery." If it's one of your relatives, it's an obligation to do so. Shulchan Aruch says the kohen, let's assume it's a kohen that goes to the cemetery to bury his father. Okay, just an example. Let's make it simple. Somebody goes to bury his father. So he's a kohen, obviously, his father is a kohen. Comes to Shulchan Aruch and says, the child, the son, is not allowed to become impure even in the time of the funeral. He's allowed to become impure only to his father, but not the other graves around. And because of that, the Kohanim are buried at the edge, the first or last row of the section. So we're not talking about in a time where I'm a Kohen and I don't want to become a tameh, I don't want to become impure. So, it's a yortzeit or whatever that is, and therefore I'm going to go to the cemetery, and therefore I'm going to stay on the road, but it's the first grave or something. The Shulchan Aruch takes it another step. He said, even in the time that you're obligated to become impure, you are obligated to become impure, and you're allowed to become impure only for that particular person, not the other graves around you. But you're already impure. I'm already in a funeral. No, doesn't matter. Okay? It's the same principle. The fact that I'm impure doesn't mean that I can become more impure. The fact that I already broke that bone doesn't mean that I can go continue breaking a second and third bone. The fact that I already had a cup of coffee doesn't mean that I can go into a full breakfast if it's a fasting day, etc., etc., etc. Here's another aspect. The Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin says the following. We discussed it in one of the previous classes, the story of Achan. If you remember, in the book of Joshua, Bnei Israel conquer Yericho in a miraculous way. They go around Yericho, right, 7 times, and then the wall comes down. Great. What happens after Yericho? They go to the next destination, that's the Eye. And in the Eye, it's a terrible battle. They lose people, and they're unsuccessful. And to make a long story short, they realize that, kind of a miraculous way, whatever, there's a whole miracle going on over there, that it's because somebody took from the spoils of Yericho. Yericho, when it collapsed, all the walls, God said to Joshua, nobody takes from the spoils. Well, there was one guy who did that. His name was Achan. Okay? So the Gemara says the following. The Pasuk, when the nation comes to Moshe and say, look, to Joshua and start crying because of that defeat that they had in the second battle on the Eye, God says, Chata Yisrael וגם עברו את בריתי אשר ציוויתי אותם. Israel has sinned and they violated my commandment. חטא Yisrael. Jewish nation have sinned. Amar Rabbi Abba bar Zavda says the following. Af al pi shechata Israelu. It's a very, very famous saying. A person, a Jew, even though he or she violated the commandment, whatever commandment that is, they're still Israel. They're still part of the nation. What is behind that saying? Israel, af al pi shechata Israelu. So you can say the simple understanding of it is that you need to accept and you need to embrace even those who violate, even those who are off the track. Okay, fine. But perhaps there's something else going on here. And what I refer to is taking responsibility. The fact that you violated something, the fact that you failed in some way, it doesn't mean that you're off the hook. You're still obligated. You're still Israel. I get it. Everybody failed at some point. But you still have a responsibility to continue. People might say, well, you know, I failed in A, B, and C. What's the point of keeping this Judaism thing? I'm already like so removed. I'm like already violated A, B, and C. The Gemara says, "Af al pi shechata Yisraelu." Okay, I get it. Nobody's perfect. But you're still responsible. You're still part of the nation. You're still Israel, and you have that responsibility to continue. There is no such a thing. You know, what's the point of me putting on tefillin or davening if I already ate on Yom Kippur? I already violated Shabbat. I already ate on Yom Kippur. I already ate pig, whatever that is. What's the point of coming to this shir? What's the point? You have the responsibility. You're not off the hook, no matter what. You can't say it's already broken. Said, what's the point? I'm going to continue breaking it. The window is already broken. I'm going to continue breaking the second window. There's a lot of trash on the floor. I'll continue. I'll do another one. What's the difference? The sink is already full of dishes. What's the big deal? One more cup. I'm already impure. So what the difference does it make if I'm going to be getting into the cemetery? The Torah says, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And that mechanism that the Torah emphasizes in Korban Pesach, the etzem lo tishberu bo, do not break the bones. The fact that it's already broken doesn't mean that you can continue break. The fact that I already ate doesn't mean that I can continue eating. It's the same principle that we talked about littering. It's about Korban Pesach. It's about the Kohanim. It's about the person who needs to fast. It's about any situation. The Torah attacks, completely rejects that mechanism. And by doing that, the Torah helps us understand that mechanism and gives us the opportunity and the tools to fight against that. And perhaps if we do that and we and we catch that on time and we realize, and we have better chance in a little bit minimizing bad stuff in this world. Questions? Yes.
What if you didn't eat by accident? What if you purposely broke your fast? Like after mincha, people say, well.
I don't know who says that after mincha it's okay. That's not okay. But I think that statement from the Gemara, you talk Israel, afal pi shechata Yisrael, that's exactly attacks that. You're not off the hook. You still have a responsibility. You know what? Even if you did that deliberately. I'm not talking about accidentally breaking the bone. I'm talking about even if you wanted to break the bone, even if you still have the obligation. You're not off the hook. Hannah, you had a question? Right. But it's not only that. It's I'm taking it to the next level. I'm saying it's also that responsibility that you have. Okay. It's yes. You always accept it, no matter how far you're removed, how far you went off the track, let's call it. But also on the individual level, the individual needs to know that there's a responsibility. The fact that I have done A, B, and C doesn't give me the right to continue doing that. There's always repair. There's always can be a repair. That's what